Jay here, welcome to Eons of Battle. Adepticon has come and gone, and so now I'm left with an Adepta haul. We got some stuff. The first thing that I picked up at Adepticon was I finally got some battle castings minis. I have been window shopping his booth for years and years now because I love his retro style, like Imperial Knight-ish miniatures. They're so like retro and interesting and designed so well to capture the old armor cast style that the armor cast company used to have, which was attached to Games Workshop, and they for a very short amount of time made like the retro Eldar Phantom Titan and the Reaver Titan originally came from armor cast. I remember in college, somebody on Facebook Marketplace had one of those for sale for a pretty good price, but I had no money. And so I didn't get it, but now I can relive those experiences with the Battle Castings Knights. These guys are so wickedly weird. And at his booth, he had all of the beautiful Titans all on display. And so I decided that I do want an Imperial Knights army, and now I have an Imperial Knights army. This guy, the Cutlass class War Strider, is going to be a regular old knight. Then I have a Imperial Knight Lancer in the Ulan class Assault Strider. This guy has all of the trappings to be any of the different types of knights, but I'm gonna put him together as a Knight Lancer. And I have a pair of War Dogs, and by War Dogs, I mean, what are the Imperium little knights called? The Armigers. I got 2 sets of these so that I can have 4. They're about 135 to 150 points each. So with all 4 of these kits, I have about 1,500 points of Imperial Knights, but I want to play with the army before I do that last little bit of points. And 500 points is a little bit for knights. That's essentially 1, but which one? I actually own a bunch of Imperial Knights, and so I think once I've got these guys put together and painted up, I want to swap in some of the other knights to see how they feel before I pull the trigger. Probably next year at Adepticon, I'll get the last piece of this puzzle, and then I'll have a really weird, really retro, really cool Imperial Knight army. These models are absolutely gorgeous, and I always knew that I was gonna buy probably all of the Imperial Knights, and so this is the year that I finally pulled the trigger. This is the very first thing I got at Adepticon, but it was not the last. One thing that we were incredibly excited to do at Adepticon was check out the Archon Studios booth and get to demo the new Starcraft 2 miniatures game. And it does seem like a really cool game. It's got elements of like Star Wars Legion and Bolt Action, and it has some really interesting list building system where you have a hand of cards, and depending on which cards you put in your deck, that tells you what units that you're going to include and the ways that you're going to include them in your force on the tabletop. And so since we have the Terran and the Protoss launch boxes, we all got a little something to accessorize our armies with. Sean got the Stalkers, and he actually already put them together. These guys are way freakier than I thought they were in the game. I mean, in the game, they just look like 10 pixels that are scuttling around the board, and my Marauders are really good at killing them. But in reality, it's like a little elf whose body is attached to a refrigerator. It's the weirdest looking thing. I had no idea that the Protoss looked like this, but they are pretty darn snazzy. I, of course, got myself some more Marauders. Now I'll have 6 Marauders, which kinda also isn't nearly enough, but I do feel like I should get some reps in with the game before I go super hard into Marauders, because it might be somewhat non-viable. Marauders in the war game do seem very tech to killing heavy infantry or like heavy units, and there's not that many armored units actually in the game. So I don't know how effective absolutely spamming Marauders are gonna be, but 6 is spam light, and I'm ready to run 6. And then Nick got the Hydralisks for his Zerg army. These guys, I think they're a shooting unit in the game. They're very big, very spooky, very monstrous looking. I think in game, you can take them in squads of 2 or 4, or they might be stuck at 2 and 2, but they're actually a really, really elite unit for the Zerg. They have some pretty good shooting, not terribly good close combat. You really want to be doing the shooting. And they have some burrow shenanigans that can make them really, really hard to target. So I'm very excited to see how these guys get to play on the tabletop. But man, do we have a lot of Starcraft minis to be working on in the very near future. While I was at Adepticon, I got a whole bunch of Turbo Dork paints, and I've always kind of been perusing their range, but it's really hard. My local hobby store has Turbo Dork, but it's really hard to see what it is on the bottle because you just get that little reference swatch. But at their booth, they had every single color done on a miniature, and so you really get to see their brilliance. And so I bought a whole bunch of those paints to try out on some of my Starcraft Terran. And so I'm gonna be trying that out and then seeing what happens. And then the best results, I'll probably just end up snowballing into the rest of my collection. One thing I saw at Adepticon that completely took me by surprise is Wargames Atlantic has some new Quir. I really like Quir. I think I have the 2-player starter set. I put together a little bit of my Kofterans, and now there is even more for Quir. Number one, there's the Kofterans Specialists, which I was buying these guys in metal and Ceocast back when it was on their website. But now that it's been upgraded to beautiful plastics, I am very excited to get some more of these guys on the tabletop. Particularly like these weird little masks. I've been turning them into scary skull faces, as scary as you can get on a World War I anteater man who's got the body of Winnie the Pooh. But I do really like Quir. And I'm very excited to try out these Fidwog Cavalry. I was really, really bummed because the last order I put in for Quir was right after the old Metal Cavalry went out of stock and was gone, and I couldn't have it, and I couldn't get it, and I was really sad. But luckily they have been recreated in beautiful plastic, and you also get this musician. Look at this little guy just playing his weird instruments. I like Quir a lot. This is really, really exciting, and I do need to get a move on with my Quir. I have a bunch of miniatures. I have a bunch in various stages of completion, and I think I came up with a really good color scheme to be able to quickly knock out a whole bunch of miniatures. The only problem is I go a little bit hard in the kit fashion converting, and so that has been slowing me down a little bit. But I am excited to get some more Quir on the table with some more Quir-y options. These guys are fun. But speaking of fun, that is not the only little game that I got at Adepticon. This is one that I've actually seen at my local store forever, and seeing it at Adepticon, I finally pulled the trigger. Hairfoot Jousting. This is a cute little war game where you are riding little critters and you're jousting. And that is the entire description, but a very good description of this game. It looks like a lot of fun. There's chicken riders, there's porcupine riders, there's little gremlin grot guy riding a giant centipede. It looks like a lot of fun. It is very cute, and I'm excited to try this game out. It looks like a very small, self-contained game that I think is gonna be a really good time. And this book is gorgeous. I've bought a lot of rule books, and a lot of them are various stages of a couple of pieces of paper that are stapled together to, I have so many PDFs on my computer of things that never even made it to print, but this book is lovely. And so this is gonna look great on the shelf. Excited for this. And speaking of things I am excited for, I got some little peripheral tools to help me in my games of 40K. J15 Games, they had some 40K accessories, and I've been having a hard time with 40K. I used to just use pen and paper to keep track of my command points, my secondary mission objectives, and my primary mission objectives, because 40K is scored on a 100-point system. So you're picking up 14 points here, 6 points here, 2 points here, 11 points here. It's not usually odd numbers, but you have to write down a lot of things and keep track of things. And so I used to use this little drawing tablet, but for babies, where you just draw on the screen and you can see the things that you do. But they keep breaking. I have one that still works, but it's also hard to fit all of what I need to do on one of those. And so this little dial right here, it's got the secondary mission, the primary mission, the round, and the command points. And this little thing should be perfect for keeping track of everything. And it's small and pink. It's perfect. It'll fit really nicely in my carrying case when I go to the store. And Sean and I decided to split a box of these little missile tokens, the Hunter Killer Missile. I've been bringing Vindicators in my games with my Black Templars, and so I actually have some Hunter Killer Missiles, and it's really frustrating. I have 3 Vindicators, and turn 1, I typically fire the Hunter Killer Missile unless I don't have a great target. But then if I didn't shoot it, like if I fire 2 but don't shoot 1, it's hard to keep track of who was the one who didn't shoot it. 3 turns later, I'm like, oh, I've got a beautiful shot on that enemy tank over there, but I'm like only 50% sure that I still have the Hunter Killer Missile and I don't want to cheat. And so these little tokens, I think, are gonna make that, they're just gonna make sure that I don't have to think about it. I will know if that tank still has the Hunter Killer Missile or not. And they're really nice. And speaking of things that are really nice, I was at the Drop Zone fleet, or at the TT Combat fleet, and I really like Dropfleet Commander, Drop Zone Commander, and I really like the Sheltari. And there's the Sheltari species is an alien race of essentially the Greys from classic fiction, but they're hedgehogs. They're covered in like porcupine quills, or I guess hedgehog quills, and they're really funky little dudes. And I knew that there was a skirmish game created that you could get an actual miniature of what they look like, but at their booth, they actually had the miniature. And so now I've got a little mini of one of the weirdest little aliens from any miniatures game, and he's great. He's like a little weird alien Sonic the Hedgehog. He's fantastic. But speaking of weird little things that are fantastic, when I was looking through the booths, I saw this war game called Oasis, and it is a 6mm war game, absolutely tiny. And the display that they had at the booth was unbelievably gorgeous. And I picked up every single model and I looked at them, and they had them available for sale. And so I got everything actually, I didn't get the flyers, but I got every single ground unit available for the game because I was just so tickled at the scale. I got, literally as we got back from Adepticon, I stayed up late and I put together a whole bunch of these grav tanks and these little dudes, and they are fantastic. I really, really like them. I assume that they're gonna paint up so incredibly quickly. And one of the cool things at Adepticon is everybody is there. And so I was talking with the guys running the booth, and the person who painted the beautiful display at the booth was also at the convention. So I just went and found him and I talked his ear off, asking him all of the different paints he used and the techniques he used and the materials to make the basing. And so I got the inside scoop on this game Oasis, and I really like it. This stuff is so tiny and so interesting. It's given me vibes to X-Wing, the miniatures game. I actually magnetized all of these parts so that they will clip on nicely and I can play with them when they're on my desk. But it's so cute. Look at the little car on the little 25mm base. I'm very, very excited for this. I got about half of what I got at Adepticon already put together, and I'm just excited to start painting these suckers because they're so small. This grav tank is smaller than a Space Marine, and so it'll paint up in probably less time than a Space Marine. And I think in one day I can paint a massive army because that massive army is just so small. I am really, really tickled. I kept going back to the booth getting more because I got some of my favorite models like the grav tanks and the little fellas. And then that night I went onto their website and I looked at all of the different things that are on their Game Found campaign and some of the things that they were teasing for the future. And so then I'm like, well, I like the game even more now. So then I went back the next day and I got even more miniatures. And then on my way out of Adepticon, I'm like, well, I might as well just stock up because I don't know when things are going to be available again, when their campaign is going to be over. And so I got some more. We're ready to go with Oasis whenever I can twist Sean's arm into playing it with me. Look at the little mech, the little tiny mech. He's smaller than a penny and he's a giant mech. I really like this stuff. It is very, very cool. But speaking of things that are very, very cool, I went to the Modifius booth and I pulled the trigger on some characters that I have been wanting to do for a while. Number one, they just had some of their older inventory in stock. And so I got the older Space Sentry and the older Murlocs, Mirelurks. And so there's now newer sculpts that are more based on Fallout 4. But these older sculpts are a little bit more based on Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, which is my favorite Fallout. And so I'm very excited that I got some of these guys that better match the video game that I have like 2,000 hours in. I also got the Hermit Crab, which I don't know if he was in Fallout 4, but he's definitely in Fallout 76 because I ran into him in the game. And I spent like 30 minutes because all I had was a shotgun, just shooting this like Titan character a couple of times, then running up a hill. Then while it was chasing me up the hill, I would run down the hill and then shoot him some more. And then just keep doing that loop endlessly until I finally managed to kill the epic creature. But now I got one of these guys for the game. I think I'm probably going to use him as terrain because it is a massive miniature. This is a bus that he is wearing as his hermit crab shell. And so I think I'm going to like kit bash some Fallout disheveled structures on top of his carapace. And he's just going to live as some terrain in my games of Fallout factions. But speaking of Fallout factions, they have a whole bunch of new factions in plastic. I got the Wasteland Raiders core box. This actually comes with some suits of Raiders power armor. And so the crew that I want to put together is Cult of the Mothman. And then I also want to do the Crimson Caravan Company from Fallout New Vegas. And so those are the teams that are going to be mine. But I do want some just generic goons as a loner army and as just something else to use. And so I think the Wasteland Raiders is going to be perfect for that. Kind of like the Viper game from Fallout New Vegas. The last thing that caught my eye at Adepticon was the secondhand booth they had everything for the game Infinity, which is really nice because Infinity has an amazing historic catalog of sculpts. And I do like some of the older sculpts, not more than the new, but Infinity, a lot of your characters are like man with this particular type of sniper rifle and this particular type of pistol. So it doesn't really matter what miniature you're using. So you can just use your favorite one. And so there's a whole bunch of little minis that I have saved onto my computer where it's like, if I ever see this particular guy with this particular jacket on, I want him to satisfy this character that I want to bring in my force. And one force that I want to put together for Infinity is a Haq Islam Oops All Bikes force. And they had the bikes. And so I got the Nezerova twins and some generic biker goons, the Come Motorized Troops. These guys I really, really like. The bikes are so cool. These big science fiction choppers. And so I do have, I think, one more box of the motorized troops. And so that'll give me 6. They're pretty expensive in-game. So I think these 2 boxes plus the 2 that I already have will put together an entire crew with just a few other pieces, including this guy from the Dire Forces box. I don't know who he's meant to be. It probably says somewhere on the box. But for me, he's going to be my head honcho with the assault carbine with attached grenade launcher and the really cool like duster jacket that he's got on. I really, really like this guy and his like awesome slicked back hair. I think this guy is going to be like the ringleader of my biker crew. Really, really like this mini. Also, it comes with a really cool Aleph character. And I also like the Aleph crew. And so I would like to put together a series of post-humans. And so all of this stuff is going to be perfect for putting together my Haq Islam force in Infinity. I already have a Pano force and it's coming along really nicely. I have to put together like 3 more boxes and then I'll have a proper playable force. But probably before I do that, I'm going to get halfway through putting together this force and then I'll be halfway on 2 different collections of Infinity. Infinity has been a labor of love, but it is definitely on the back burner. One thing that is not on the back burner is Moonstone. I really like the game Moonstone. I play it all the time, and I finally got the last thing that I need for my fairies, and that is Shadowglade. Specifically for this guy on the front, this is Wasp. The fairies were my first thing in Moonstone. I really love the sculpts. I painted them up. And then I found out that fairies are the trickiest army to play in the game because you have to balance their high action economy with their incredibly low health. And the way that that balances out in game is that fairies actually have a huge action pool, but it costs them 2 action to do any of those individual actions. And so what this guy Wasp does is he turns off the weakling keyword, meaning that I can have my fairies, specifically I think I'm gonna use it on Tito, and I can have a fairy with just 6 full-size activations per turn. That sounds like a lot of fun. And once I get him put together and painted, I will have my perfect faction for fairies. I've been playing a lot with my goblins because they're a little bit easier and a little simpler to play with. But now that I have so many games under my belt, I think I'm ready to re-attack the fairies. And Adepticon came through for me, getting me a copy of Wasp. I have so many projects in the works right now. All of these games I would like to paint and I would like to get gaming with, and I will. But there was one other thing that I picked up at Adepticon that is really cool and really spicy. Almost as spicy as some of the amazing hobby products available from EonsOfBattle.com. Over there, we have all kinds of hobby goodies, Grey Tide Studio bits to spice up your Space Marines, Army Painter paints, brushes, basin cork, and we've got glue, ultra thin and ultra thick super glue. And we have terrain. It's the best way to support us doing what we do by getting a membership. Each month, members get a credit good for any one terrain pack we've ever made, or the brand new one. New in April, we have created the Armored Accessories Bits Pack. This set is full of awesome components to make your vehicles as unique and characterful as your infantry. With all kinds of equipment, storage, barrels, and tools for your tanks to carry, seals and tassels that are actually vehicle-sized, big old missiles, and extra armor. So many pieces of armor plating in different sizes and patterns so your tanks can have the up armor treatment that looks best on it. Whether it's a futuristic war machine, an ancient Hulk, or a chaotic monstrosity, these accessories will have your tanks covered. This bits pack was made by tank players for tank players and is available both digitally and physically printed for you at EonsOfBattle.com. I have been collecting a lot of old Warhammer. I have about 4,000 points of Space Marines. I got a good collection of orcs. I got some Dark Eldar. I got tons and tons of demons. And at the Pick and Pull booth, the secondhand store, I saw that he had his bin of Sisters of Battle, the old metal Sisters of Battle. And so I spent about 3 hours digging through the entire booth and finding every single metal sister that they had. And it's a little tricky when you're looking for old school stuff because there were old sculpts, and when you bought a box, you didn't necessarily always know what sculpts you're gonna get. So over the passage of time, a lot of things have been missing and collections have like come and gone. And so I picked and pulled on my way to 2 squads of Battle Sisters with every single sculpt available for the Battle Sisters and 1 squad of 5 Zephyrim. And the Zephyrim, there was only ever, I think, 4 sculpts for, and I managed to get 3. I got the twin flamers, the twin bolt pistols, and that's it. Yeah, because there's 2 different poses for the bolt pistols. Hand flamers, bolt pistols, 2 different poses. I managed to get 5. The only thing I don't have is the Zephyrim with plasma pistol and power sword. But I was able to get basically everything else for the old metal Battle Sisters range. And honestly, I might, when I start going down the project of putting together all of my old metal stuff, I think I might start with the Sisters. They're a little later, time-wise, than a lot of the other stuff. Most of my collecting has been 2nd edition, where I think Battle Sisters are a little bit more 3rd edition. But the Battle Sisters are so cool because they came out like this, and they were probably the best miniatures that Games Workshop had ever made. And then they did not receive an update for like 25 years. They were the old metal Battle Sisters after everything else had been redone in beautiful plastics and revamped several different times. Gene Stealer cults died, Custodes went away and then came back. The sisters were still metal. And so I really like the history and the provenance that is in these old miniatures. And so I decided to pick up a great collection of these old minis. From the heavy flamers to the regular old bolters, the regular flamethrowers, the helmeted heads versus the helmetless heads. This is a really, really cool collection of miniatures. Some actually really pretty good paint jobs in some of these secondhand minis that I'm going to paint strip and then paint over. But it is cool. Oh, some of the paint on this is very, very thick. But I am very excited to get working on some old school Warhammer. And I think that the Sisters of Battle are going to be a great place to start because my dream is to take these old miniatures and then paint them in a very modern style using speed paints, contrast paints, airbrush, maybe even a little bit of oil paint. Make these old models look like they've never looked before. And I feel like that's going to be tricky to do on some of the oldest stuff, but the Sisters are so good that I do think that these models are gonna paint up really, really well. And hopefully this will be like a good training, like a training regimen to work on, taking these pretty darn good minis and seeing if I can paint them even better so that I can go back to the old crunchy, cruddy stuff and see if I can make that stuff look really, really good. I've got 3 squads, technically 4 squads, because I bought him out of heavy flamethrowers just because he had a bunch. And so I have 3. What is the name of the heavy weapons squad? A castigator squad? I have almost enough to put together one of those if I would manage to get a canoness somewhere. But other than that, I am now the proud owner of a Sisters of Battle army for old school 40K, and I am very excited to give that a try. It was a incredibly successful Adepticon. We also got to demo a whole bunch of stuff. We got to see basically everybody. We got to meet a whole bunch of other cool hobby heroes, and we got to eat a bunch of okay food and some really good food. So overall, it was a big win for Adepticon. Let me know in the comments below what on this desk has got you guys excited to see in some videos. What should I expedite on the painting desk? I am really excited for the bikes, but I'm also really excited for Oasis. I mean, I've already got some of these guys put together and I have a bigger bag of them underneath me. These little tiny things, they're grains of rice with machine guns. It's so much fun. I'm just gonna have to make a wheel with all of these different things on the wheel, and I'm gonna spin it to see what I'm working on that day. I'm really excited. Thanks for watching.